Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. Today, we have with us Jinoy Viswan. Jinoy is the CEO of Aegis Consultancy. Thank you, Jinoy, for joining with us today. Perhaps if you can tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, Mohammed, how are you? Yeah, I am by profession a civil engineer, and I have completed my MBA. And recently, this year, I have also completed my diploma in arbitration from Dubai International Arbitration Center. I have worked in Middle East for 28 years, and out of total experience of 30 years. I used to manage large-scale EPC projects across Middle East. And as of date, today, I work as a CEO of Aegis, which is a boutique consultancy that specializes in contract management, extension of time claim, delay analysis. We generally support contractors and subcontractors, and we do a lot of training classes for corporate contracting clients to educate them on contracts. We started Aegis 2 years back because we thought there was a gap in this market. There were very good contractors who are technically quite brilliant, accomplished much complex projects without even sweating. But end of the day, they end up either being liquidated or being taking huge losses because they never look on the contractual side. So when a contract issue arises and soon it becomes a dispute, takes this happens in courtrooms where lawyers are the one who are leading the case. Now the problem with contractors is they don't understand law, and the problem with lawyers is that they don't understand construction. So this was the gap that we understood, and by the time the contractor realizes all the truth, the damage is already done. The contractor needs somebody who understands his language. And my 3 decades of experience is exactly that. I can relate to them. I know I've seen this going over and over and over again. End of the day, the contractor loses the case, pays a huge amount of charges in legal fees, and the damage is already set.
You have a civil engineering background, and then you decided to get into the contract management. So, was it just the opportunity, or there was an interest in the contract management?
No, actually, I am a civil engineer. I used to headline a completely mechanical EPC contracting company. My experience started in infrastructure, roads, bridges, then commercial buildings, and then hydrocarbon, port, process industries, and everything. So, like every other engineer, I started a site. I joined a bridge contracting company in India, and I joined as a site engineer. So I started with site tasks, construction schedule, and soon I realized that the project losses were not technical in nature. You are doing a project because you know exactly how to do this project, and much more effect or the cost of the losses were contractual. So I started reading contracts, not for compliance, but for understanding to see those patterns you have to see in contracts. So there is certain milestones to be done, certain steps to be taken. If you don't take those steps, nothing happens. You lose all your stuff. So contracts for me is not just a documentation reserved for only lawyers. These are battle plans. So when you are in a position to run a big project, you realize here that your biggest risk is not technical, because technical side you are always strong. Your biggest risk is contractual. You get blamed for the delays, you are blamed for the variations, you get rejected variations always. And end of the day, what happens, even you do your best, you do all the hard work, you spend a couple of years to do the project. The employer imposes liquidated damages on you because you didn't follow the paperwork. So I started reading clause by clause, and then I understood that you really cannot manage projects if you cannot manage contracts.
Contract management is a wide field. I don't really think that in today's podcast we'll be able to cover the full contract management. A topic which I particularly have a lot of interest, and I see this as a boilerplate when it comes to to the contract management, is about notices. When you are running out of budget, you want to submit claims, but you realize that you haven't actually informed the customer when that particular event happened. So tell us a bit more about what is your opinion on the notices.
It's interesting what you said, because engineers are not being educated in contracts or even construction law. So for engineers, everything is about what we say three pillars: scope, time, and cost. You have a definite scope. Engineer understands 100%. You have a time limit to finish the project. That engineer understands. You have a cost, which is your budget. That also he understands. What he doesn't understand is contracts. So a notice actually is a contractor's official way to preserve his entitlement, to preserve his rights under the contract. There is a lot of confusion on notices. People take random directions, but what we have to understand is notice is not a complaint. Notice is not a claim. It is just a red flag on the ground. It is a condition precedent to claiming your entitlements, whether it is time, whether it is cost. So what happens if you don't provide the notice in the time frame that is written in your contract, which you have agreed to it, you lose all your entitlement. Your rights, your entitlements evaporates, even if your delay and the cost incurred is genuine. So notices are not paperwork or a formality. Must be. It's a legal document. It must be adhered.
Tell us a bit more why time bound notification is important and what sort of consequences as a contractor can face if these time bound notifications are not followed.
I have seen time after time, people, the contractors especially, do not give any importance to the notice part. So when I say condition precedent is a legal gate or a key to a door. So your entitlement lies on the other side of the door, and you must open the door with this particular key. Now, what happens if you don't have the key? You have not issued the notice, you have not satisfied the condition precedent, you don't have a key, you cannot open the door, your entitlement is gone. So, if you do not pass through the door, you cannot access your entitlement, no matter how strong your claim is. So, it's not a formality, it is a fuse. You miss it, and your claim explodes right in your face before even it starts. So it's a contractual tripwire. I have seen it used and misused, but the fact is that this is not a gray area. People often say that no, notices are not very important. You can go around it because the employer was always aware. No, it's not a gray area. Time after time, court after court, arbitration, tribunal after tribunal has ruled that even if you have clear entitlement, the claim is rejected because the notice came late. So it's not a suggestion. It must be complied in the form that is required in every single contract, whether it is a standard form contract like FIDIC, NAC, JCTs, or even a bespoke contract. It has to be there. FIDIC usually allows you 28 days from being aware to issue this notice. I've seen contracts where particular conditions or the special terms, a special condition of contract is amended to make this 28 days 3 days. So you are running a site, you're quite busy in it, you see something, and then back of the mind says, okay, fine, I've seen this, I will intimate. And then you have only 3 days to react. And the fourth day, your notices goes, the other side can time bar you.
I want to extend this point a little bit further. So you mentioned that time bound notification it's a mandatory requirement and it's not a suggestion, right? I've also tripped in the past that sometimes your notice becomes first step of the claim. You start turning this notice into a sort of claim or a variation. Can you give us some guidelines like what are the key elements of notice that project managers or the contract managers must take into account when they're writing these notices?
A notice is not a story. It is not a essay. It is not a novel. It's a pretty simple legal document. Couple of things, maybe 4 or 5 things. That's it. So, what is the cause? Cause is means like what happened. What is the effect? Yeah, what was the impact due to this particular thing happening at site? And what do you want? The relief that you are seeking. So sometimes it is time, sometimes it is cost. And under what provision of the contract you are asking this? So what is the relevant clause? This must be issued without any ego, without any emotion, clarity, causation, compliance. These are the 3 C's that is mandatory in a notice, and which every tribunal, if a dispute goes to arbitration or court, every tribunal will see these 3 C's: clarity, causation, and compliance. Nothing else. It's a pretty straightforward thing. People do a lot of mess on these ones. I've seen notices in the form of petition to the employer, complaints, so much ego, many things. No, it's not required. Cause, effect, relief, and the contractual clauses under which you are seeking. That's it.
You mentioned about the cause effect, but at the same time we have seen that in the past where contractors have like multiple events which are causing those delays. How do you take this into consideration?
When I see a problem is that break it into the most simplest of truth, the first principle thinking. So why? Because we all know there is a delay, but a delay without cause is a complete noise, right? There is nothing to it, and a cause without effect is just trivia. I mean, only when you connect the delay, the cause, and the effect, then only you have a claim, right? So you must track and notify separately. Every individual delay must be tracked and notified separately. See it as a very simple case. Everybody's fingerprint is different, correct? If you get 10 different people to put their fingerprint in one page, but at 10 different places, you can still identify them. What happens if you club it together? I'm not saying it cannot be clubbed because logical grouping is allowed. But if you put 10 different fingerprints on a piece of paper on the same place, you're getting a probably a blurred stamp. So every delay event must be tracked individually, even if they are overlapping in time, because delay events carry different liabilities, different entitlements, and most importantly, different implication for concurrency. If you go with concurrency, that's a separate topic which will take probably 200 hours and it will still not be resolved. So it's not about how many days were lost, it is always about what cost them. So the causation can never be blurred if you are logically grouping or if you are illogically grouping. The causation must stay independent. Every single causation must be there. So we cannot just say that we were delayed. You have to say how, why. Without the causation, your notice is hollow. So demonstrate the event, demonstrate the impact, and demonstrate what is the contractual basis of your notice.
There are certain events for which the impact are not fully cannot fully assessed at the time of submitting of the notice, right? If you have soil risk, or if you have weather risk, or if there are less some special permission which has to be granted, how do you manage submitting the notice when the impact of that particular event cannot be assessed at the time of submitting the notice?
So even delays are of different types. So I will not say all the delays, but some of them are static delays. An event, a milestone event. So these are well defined. We did not receive it. We received on a certain date. That quantum is very clear. And some of them are dynamic. These unforeseen conditions, they continue to evolve. You have a certain structure, maybe harder soil than what was estimated at 2 meter deep, and then you issue something, and then later on we go deeper, it becomes rock. So these are dynamic nature, it continues to delay. And what contractual experts suggest is that you have to issue a preliminary notice to preserve your right. That must go within the time frame. So if you are taking your chance, you think that probably 1 week or 2 weeks down the line you will have more information, and you wait for that, you wait for full clarity, you wait for the delay to fully develop, you will miss the train. Issue something, issue a placeholder, then you continue to upgrade, and next month, next week you can issue. Preserve your position, because notice is the preservation of your position. You have to do it now, and you can update it probably later when you have more details. Update it. And what's logical is that every standard form of contract allows for it. Rather, I've seen many contracts asking for a monthly update for a dynamic delay. So waiting until you figure it out is highly risk, because the window for notice will close definitely before you realize the full cost of this one. 100%.
If you are a main contractor, you also have signed some subcontract agreements, and these similar sort of notices clause are also bound with them as well. Subcontractors feel that relationships are more important, so we can get repeated businesses in the future instead of worrying too much about the notices. What's your take on that?
The subcontractor is not going to compromise his performance on contract value. If he is a good enough subcontractor, he will perform it with the highest possible efficiency for a project which is less than 1 million and which is more than 10 million also. So the contracts should not be compromised. I see this happen regularly, because the carrot is dangled. I will give you the next project, or probably the next one, or a bigger one. Yeah, that is the management's role. That is not your role. The engineer or the project manager or the QS or the commercial contracts engineer sitting at the site must diligently follow the contractual conditions. What happens after that, your management might take a business call. That is not your mandate. What is your mandate? Finish the project in the contractual completion that it deserves. Why don't we like notices? The other party, why doesn't he like notices? Because a lot of blame game tries to be shifted. So as long as you keep it very professional, to the point, factual, without emotion, without ego, you just record what has happened. Nobody is going to be blamed. On the contrary, probably a small missed delay notice has the potential to get a subcontractor liquidated. At that particular time, the management does not have the liberty to go and settle for a next project. No, let the management do their job. Engineers, contractors, project managers, do your job, even if it is a very small project.
You use the term about don't bring the ego into the discussion. You have seen this in the industry that when QS or contract PMs are writing these notices, they bring their all the emotional drama into the letter as well. That we are frustrated with the subcontractors or with the client. This is less to do with the contract and more to do with the emotional intelligence, right? How do you make sure that you're not biased?
Notice should not have any emotions there. It's a legal document. So now you are issuing it to the employer or the consultant. The contractor is always issuing this. So you see a person. I don't see a person. I see a company. I see my company. I'm just preserving my entitlements. So, I mean, notice is preserving your entitlement, correct? Claim is asserting your entitlement. So, I don't see the person who is sitting opposite. Now I am a consultant. Now I can afford to be egoless. What happens at site is that probably in the morning they had a massive fight in the daily meeting, and then he takes all the frustration in that notice. Not required. You really don't have to, because like try, who is going to review when the dispute comes to the tribunal or the court? It is reviewed by lawyers. They are trained to spot out these emotions there. They will not put any degree of importance to the emotion. They will just review what was the fact.
We discussed that there are some let's say dynamic events for which the impact can be followed up with the update, with you can update these notices. The impact could be time and cost as well, but how do you go from that point to where you are defining the impact to the point which is asserting the claim? So you turn this impact into a full-fledged claim and you start talking about your fixed cost and variable, etc. Or what sort of steps that you can tell the PMs to turn this notice eventually into a claim?
So I will ask them to read the contracts, and you will be surprised. Nobody reads it. I've seen this happen at the contractor side. I've seen this happen at consultant side, and I've seen this happen at employer side. So contract has a definite mechanism. You have a delay event. You come to be aware of the delay event. You notify within a fixed time period, and then you follow it up with your claim. And then when you submit the claim, there is a determination period also from the other party. They have to determine your claim within a fixed time frame. So contracts are not open-ended, and because contractor is spending now, he needs relief now, not after 2 years. So read the contract. The time frame is fixed. You notice an event, you issue a notice, and then you follow it up with all the supporting particulars, contemporaneous records, site diaries, monthly progress reports, and you establish, because when you bid for the project, there were certain assumptions. We call it a base date, a month before you submit your bid. I mean, it's usually a month, but it can differ. So on those date, whatever were the conditions, this is what you bid for. Something changed from those conditions, this is definitely a claim. But if you do not notify, you do not get your claim. So you must notify, you must follow up, and you must show what is the impact. Now, how do you show the impact? You had submitted a baseline schedule, the first schedule that is approved. So this was the conditions under which you agreed to take the work. This is approved by the other party. Now you show what did you consider in your baseline and what is the impact and what is the duration. So it becomes very easy to establish the timeline. Now, timeline, most of the people do not have a problem with. Yeah, unless we are going into the float and its associated, we should doing that today. It will not be enough. So it is always the cost part. So cost part would be definitely discussed a long period of time. But try to establish the fact that you get your time first. So at least one of the two is already settled. And then you talk about the cost.
Give us one recent case. What sort of impact contractors or subcontractors had having not sending a notice, let's say 1 hour to send the notice, and eventually it will save you X million.
There are probably thousands of cases where conditions, time barred notices resulted in your claim being thrown out of. And not only thrown out of the tribunal, but also you were imposed liquidated damages also. So, what was the solution? You spent 1 hour, issue one notice. What did you do? You did not do it because you waited for certain things, or you completely forgot, or you thought that probably the other party is aware. Now, just because the other party is aware, courts and tribunals have ruled that this is not notice. You have signed on a condition in the contract that you will abide by that. You simply did not do, right? So in contracts, if it is not written, it's fiction. Simple as that. You must do your work, and I won't go into the different types of contract. But if your employer was supposed to give you possession of the site on, let us say, 1st of January, and unfortunately by that time certain things happened, he was not able to give the possession. Maybe he had material stored there, and he gave it on February 15th. What you should have done was 1st of January, you saw the site, there were material on that. 2nd of January, you should have issued. Or even if you waited for the timeline period that is written in the contract, we cannot work because your material is there. Let us please remove it. So then your time starts from February when you are given possession. Now, unfortunately, you did not give notice, and the client also did not complain. He was aware because it is his material lying on the project site, right? But later, what happens? You are supposed to finish the project on December 31st. You are simply unable because you started 1 month late. You finished the project on 1st of February. Client imposes liquidated damages. What is your defense? Nothing. You did not notify. You should have notified. So cases get thrown out of this quite regularly, even if There are recourses. People might say the common law system treats us differently, the civil law system treats us differently, but it doesn't take time. A notice takes hardly an hour. And to say that we forgot or we delayed or it doesn't matter is ridiculous. It is not accepted anywhere. Same is the case with employer designed contracts where issued for construction drawings has to come from the employer. Now we are all on the honeymoon phase because the project is awarded. We just mobilize. We don't want them to be upset. We were supposed to receive the drawing on 1st of January. The client wants something else and wants some changes, wants some more improvement in the FC drawings. He continues to delay and he gives you a 1 month late. But his expectation would be, even if I am delaying, you should complete your project in time. Even you should spend more money and more resources to make sure that the mandate does not go. No, you are under no pretense that you have to spend additional money to address the problems of the other party. So if he wants an acceleration, he will tell you to accelerate, and don't accelerate unilaterally. Wait for the instruction, get the instruction, only then accelerate and claim your acceleration cost.
You're very active on LinkedIn as well. Tell us a bit more about your LinkedIn journey. How are you finding the experience?
So I started writing on LinkedIn because I understood that engineers are never educated in contracts or construction law. So where does the dispute crystallizes first? It crystallizes at the site, and the parties in these disputes, none of them is a lawyer. So the contractor side is an engineer, employer side is an engineer, consultant side is an engineer with very limited, I won't say zero knowledge of law, with very limited knowledge of law, and even very limited knowledge of what is written in the contract. So in my last project in India, I got an EOT claim approved. Now, the India is a different common law system. UAE is not. So what happened in India may not necessarily happen in UAE. So there are things that engineers do not understand. So my purpose in writing in LinkedIn was to make them understand of these small things. If you see FIDIC standard forms of contracts is written by consulting engineers. Now, why this need arose was because lawyers had made it too complicated for normal people to understand contracts. Notwithstanding something, why are you having it here? You have a whole contract there. So purpose of writing in contract was show them how it is done. And luckily for me, I have got very good results. People ask me routinely. People get in touch with me. I got some good friends. I got good connections. And there are people who are genuinely in problem. And then they come and ask. And as much as I hate to tell them, if you are not issued notice, there is nothing much you can do. Beg, request. No, we will file a case. You have a waterfall mechanism. You have a dispute resolution mechanism. You have to go through that. So I started writing posts initially, and then people started appreciating. So I thought that posts may not be a good solution. Rather, probably I start issuing polls. So then I started multiple choice, very simple polls engagement. So the engagement rises, and people comment on it directly. People send me personal messages. No, I didn't understand that. Can you explain? I am more than happy to do that because my point is that dispute should not reach court. It is the last stage. So if you can prevent a dispute from happening, that has to happen at the site. So it is very important that every engineer has some basic knowledge of contracts. Without that, we are just operating in dark. So I started a newsletter recently. I did not do it for so many years. Like I've been on LinkedIn for 20 years probably. The last Saturday, on a hunch, I started a newsletter. And the kind of appreciation that is coming is quite mind blowing.
Thank you, Jinoy. Much appreciate your
Thank you so much, Mohammed. Thank you. Pleasure meeting you.